There's a shadow war being fought right now on America's highways, at our ports, and inside our warehouses. And it's a fight that's costing billions, it's messing with commerce, and it's putting our entire supply chain at risk. So today, we are going deep on the really alarming rise of cargo theft and what the US Department of Transportation is planning to do to fight back. Okay, first, let's just wrap our heads around how big this problem really is. According to data from the Travelers Institute, just between 2021 and 2024, reported cargo thefts they've skyrocketed by an incredible 90%. Now, this isn't some small increase or a little statistical blip. No, this is a full-blown crisis, and it's happening all across the country. It's affecting everything from the electronics we buy to the food on our tables and even essential medical supplies. And the money involved? It's just as shocking. The average value of a single stolen load has now blown past $200,000. Just think about that for a second. We're not talking about a few boxes falling off the back of a truck here. We're talking about an entire tractor trailer full of goods, gone. That could be a small business's entire inventory for a quarter, or a shipment of life-saving medicine just vanishing. Multiply that by thousands of thefts, and you start to see the massive hole it's blowing in our economy. So how are we going to break all this down? Well, first, we're going to look at the sheer scale of America's stolen supply chain. Then we'll pull back the curtain on the crook's modern playbook. After that, we'll dive into a really critical topic, the threat from within. Next, we'll get into the details of the DOT's coordinated battle plan. And finally, and this is super important, we'll talk about your role in this whole fight. All right, let's start with the big picture. This is not just a headache for a couple of trucking companies. Cargo theft has become a real national crisis. It's causing huge economic losses and creating serious disruptions for businesses. And for you, the consumer. Every single stolen load punches another hole in our supply chain, and that leads to empty shelves, delays in production, and higher prices for everybody. Now, this quote right here, this really gets to the heart of the frustration. This comes from testimony given directly to Congress. Donna Lem from the American Trucking Associations isn't just pointing out the theft itself. She's highlighting the most infuriating part, the almost complete lack of resolution. These criminals are getting away with it again and again, and that just makes them bolder. So why is nobody getting caught? Well, the Department of Transportation, the DOT, says it's a fundamental flaw in the system. Picture this. A truck full of brand new laptops gets stolen in California. The thieves immediately drive it to Arizona, they unload the goods, and then they sell them online to people in New York. The crime just crossed 3 state lines, but here's the problem. There's no single connected database tracking it all. Reporting is all broken up and inconsistent, and that creates these jurisdictional gaps and blind spots that these criminals have become experts at exploiting. So how exactly are they pulling this off? Let's get into their playbook. And you can forget that old image of some lone thief with a crowbar trying to bust open a lock. The criminals today are organized, they're tech-savvy, and they are incredibly strategic. The DOT actually breaks their methods down into 2 very different categories, and it shows you just how sophisticated this threat has become. So on one hand, you've got what are called straight thefts. This is probably what you think of first. Stealing a trailer from a truck stop, breaking into a shipping container, or just opportunistic crimes when a truck is parked. But then, on the other side, you have something way more sinister, strategic theft networks. And folks, this is organized crime. We're talking about creating fake companies, these chameleon carriers that look totally legit just so they can get hired and then disappear with your cargo. It involves cyber attacks to get into logistics systems to find the most valuable targets, and most importantly, it relies on insider collusion. I actually want to pause here for a second and ask you, especially those of you on the front lines, our drivers, our dispatchers, our fleet managers, looking at this list, which one of these threats really keeps you up at night? Is it the old school brute force of a physical break-in? Or is it the terrifying sophistication of a cyber heist where the load is gone before you even know you've been hacked? What are you actually seeing out there? Let me know down in the comments. Your perspective is incredibly valuable. Of all those threats we just looked at, there's one that the DOT is especially zeroing in on because it is so hard to fight. And that's the threat from within. Because the most damaging weak spots, they aren't always on the road. A lot of times, they're inside your own operation. This isn't just an industry rumor. This is a giant red flag being waved at the federal level. The DOT specifically calls out insider collusion as a cornerstone of strategic theft. See, these criminal networks are smart. They actively recruit or plant people inside logistics companies, warehouses, and carriers. And those insiders feed them everything they need to know: what's in the shipment, what route it's taking, where the driver plans to stop for the night, and exactly what security measures they'll have to get around. And this really drives home a crucial point. All the high-security locks and fancy GPS trackers in the world are essential, but they can be beaten if somebody on the inside is handing the criminals the playbook on how to do it. That's why the integrity, the honesty, the trustworthiness of your team, that is one of your most critical lines of defense against these guys. So the big question is, how do you build that trustworthy team? Well, it all starts by creating a culture of safety, of professionalism, and of accountability. And this is where solid compliance with DOT and FMCSA regulations becomes more than just paperwork. It becomes a powerful security tool. Rigorous programs, like the ones managed by LabWorks USA for drug and alcohol compliance, are absolutely fundamental. They help make sure that every single person you put behind the wheel is reliable and properly vetted. It hardens your entire operation against that insider threat right from the ground up. So, with the problem this big, with threats from the outside and vulnerabilities on the inside, what in the world is being done about it? Well, the DOT is mobilizing. They've put out a formal request for information, which is basically the starting pistol for a new coordinated, national-level battle plan. They are officially calling for backup. And the DOT has laid out some very clear goals. They want to improve coordination between trucking, rail, and maritime security. They want to support much better data collection to get rid of those dangerous blind spots we talked about. They want to build stronger partnerships between private companies and law enforcement. And this one is huge. They want to close the loopholes that let these fraudulent chameleon carriers get shut down, only to pop back up a week later under a new name and keep right on stealing. To hit these goals, they're casting a really wide net for information. They're pulling in intel from stakeholders like shippers and insurance companies. They're getting law enforcement involved at every level, and they're coordinating across all the federal agencies, from the FMCSA all the way to the FBI. And look at step 4. This is critical. They are engaging the industry directly. They're talking to the trucking associations, the tech companies, and the carriers themselves to make sure whatever strategies they come up with are actually based in reality. And that brings us to our final section, and honestly, it might be the most important one. This isn't just some policy debate happening in Washington, D.C. This national effort directly involves you. Your experience is a critical piece of the puzzle that the government is trying to put together. I mean, think about it. Government agencies can form all the task forces they want, but they don't know the nitty-gritty of your day-to-day work. They need to hear about the clever, low-cost tricks you've developed to keep your loads safe. They need your honest opinion on which new anti-theft gadgets are game changers and which ones are just hype. And maybe most importantly, they need to understand the real-world frustrations you face when you try to report a theft so they can build a system that actually works for the people doing the work. So, as we start to wrap this up, here's the big question we're left with. The DOT is stepping up. The call for everybody to work together is out there. Technology gets better every single day. But so do the criminals. So can this new coordinated push finally turn the tide and get us ahead of these stuff networks for good? Or is this just a high-stakes game of cat and mouse that will never truly be won? I'd really love to know what you think. If you found this explainer valuable and it gave you something new to think about, please do me a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to the LabWorks USA channel for more deep dives into the issues that matter most to the trucking industry. And please, feel free to share this with anyone in your network who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for watching.